It is brought to you by Kashrus Anytime, which is part of the Kosher Consumers Union, a 501c3 corporation. We'll address now hand matzos. In this short article, we will attempt to explain the various minhagim, chumras, and what to be on the lookout when baking hand matzos. First is the wheat. For those who are concerned about Yoshan, make sure that the wheat is either winter wheat or planted enough time before Pesach so that it had taken root before Pesach. Besides having some verification of when it was planted, such as having a mashgiach inspect the field a few days before Pesach, some also utilize the records from the insurance company that granted the crop insurance. In the past few years, there has been an issue with winter wheat. The gluten is very low, so some spring wheat is added in order to raise the gluten content. As Hasidim do not have a Masorah about Yosham, or at least they don't accept the minig of Yosham, they are generally less makbid about it. Nevertheless, one can certainly verify with the Hashgacha regarding Yosham in the matzahs because they may very well be adding in some spring wheat. Harvesting time. Professional opinion differs concerning the ideal moisture content for harvesting. Ideally, of course, it's best to harvest when the wheat is completely dry. The drier the wheat, the better the flour. The issue is that once it's ain't a tzarech l'karka, it doesn't require the ground anymore. Should it rain, the moisture can theoretically create a chametz problem with the wheat. Wheat quality. Depending on the geographical location and the ground, wheat flour will absorb water at a different ratio in one area compared to wheat planted elsewhere. It is therefore important to conduct actual comparative baking tests to ascertain which wheat flour source is more suitable. Final flour preparation. It is quite common to combine whole wheat, which is called rasava, flour together with white flour for taste and consistency purposes. Incidentally, this mixture also changes the ratio of absorption of the water. Some bakeries will mix flour from different areas, which may pose a problem. Bakeries will usually be forthcoming with the source of the wheat. Arizona, California, Maryland, New Jersey, upstate New York, or elsewhere. It may be a reason of concern, however, if the bakery refuses to share that information. Mayim Shalanu. There are various opinions concerning the time frame for drawing water from the well, which is called Mayim Shalanu. Some bakeries use sink tap water for Mayim Shalanu. There are valid differences of opinion which shkia time is used. If you have a strong opinion, then it's best to ask before your appointment. Some may be using Rabbeinu Tam time of shkia, and that may be not in conjunction with what you're looking for. Gloves. Some will want the kneader, which is called the kneter, to wear non-powdered gloves or none at all. Some are concerned that the kneter's hands may sweat, and should there be a hole in the glove, the accumulated sweat may escape through the hole into the flour or dough, so they don't use gloves at all. Some kneters' hands were checked after they made multiple doughs, and although they wore gloves, their hands did not have any sweat. There are some who insist that they change the bowls and the gloves after every dough, which is a nice hiddur. Others will only change the bowl and gloves after the last dough of the 18 minutes or after every 4 to 6 doughs. Other precautions. It is important to visually and physically check the washed bowl to be certain that it is indeed completely dry. There should be a vacuum by the knetter to pick up any loose flour in the air. All the areas around the knetter's area should be checked for residual flour, especially around the windows and ledges of the person putting in the water or the flour into the knetter's mixing bowl. It is important to work with the driest possible dough, as is written by the Chazon Ish. Professional opinions are that 42 to 45% water to flour ratio is ideal. Some prefer to use wooden rolling pins, while others prefer to use metal or aluminum rolling pins as it's easier to clean, and there are no holes for the dough to get caught into. To have the dough workable and pliable to roll out, one must knead the dough very well, or as others use what's called finning. The finner process consists of a heavy metal bar attached on one side to a metal table. The finner bar is used to compress the dough. The dough is folded and compressed again and again by the finner bar. The longer it's being thinned, the more pliable it'll be and easier to roll out by the developers. One should check the dough interior that there are no white specks. Heard directly from Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. Because those white specks is actually flour, and if that gets into water by mistake or people that broke, it may be a serious issue according to Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. When kneading by hand only, it's more common to have white specks of flour in the dough. When thinning is also used, usually there are less incidents of white specks because the thinning works out the dough much better. The thinning process will increase the elasticity of the crumbly dough to make it workable. The longer it's thinned, the more pliable the dough will be and easy to work with to roll flat. The thinning table should be constantly brushed off from the crumbs of flour accumulating even during the thinning process. The knife used for the dividing of the dough log should be washed and or cleaned on a constant basis. Others have it cleaned or changed in between every new log of dough. After the dough is formed into a log by the thinning or the knetter, it's passed to the person who will work the dough log until he's ready to divide the log into predetermined pieces for the Velgers rollers. There should be additional people working on those divided pieces of dough. Some will roll on a marble or wooden table covered with paper, while others will work on metal tables. By the way, the paper should be checked for starch, as the paper does draw out some of the water from the dough. The Velgers rollers, who are not very professional experienced, such as may be often found at Chabura matzah baking, tend to press too hard on the dough when rolling, velgering, as it raises the temperature of the dough by a few degrees. Therefore, it's advisable to only use very experienced rollers who coax the dough rather than press on the dough while rolling. Some have the system that the same person who starts rolling out that piece of dough also finishes it to the proper size. Others use what's called a maschil and a goimer, a starter and a finisher. Experience has shown that the second method, a maschil and a goimer, is more efficient, albeit more boring. The dough should be rolled out in a manner that the edges and the center are of the same thickness. Not that there is a thicker rim. Velgering is a serious business. If someone feels that the velgering is somewhat beyond his capabilities, he should not be embarrassed to request another person. He shouldn't be embarrassed to request another position. If any dough sticks to the table paper, there may be too much water in the dough or a wet day. On a wet day, they may have to adjust to decrease the water in the dough, and the rolling pin should never be kept under the person's arms or taken out of the room at any time. At 18-minute breaks, the rolling pins should be washed with warm water. It should not be washed with warm water, only with cool water, so the rolling pins don't get warm. Some are more stringent than others in shears, lapses during the entire process. For instance, like by kneading, by thinning, by dividing, by rolling and velgering, bringing it to the redler, which is the perforator, the redler table, bringing it to the oven. The shitas harush is that there should be no lapse at all. So when you see in a box shitas harush, it does cost a little bit more because they're really working very hard and very fast and preventing any shears that there is. The holes in the matzah are made by a multiple-wheeled rotary perforator, a redler. There are two types of perforators. The ones are the narrow ones that have 4 to 6 wheels, or the wider ones that have 10 or more wheels and are of a heavier weight. Some just clean the wheels with a wire brush every 18 minutes, while others will also remove the wheels at the end of the day and burn them out with a torch or put them into an oven. The perforator redler perforates the matzos on a table that's lined with paper. The paper should move on a constant basis because it tends to collect little pieces of dough from the perforator that get stuck to the paper. After the perforator completes his work, somebody puts the perforated matzos on a stick that someone else takes to the oven. There should always be enough sticks so that you don't have to reuse any of the sticks within the same 18 minutes, as they may still be warm. In general, at the regular productions, they put 5 to 8 matzos on a stick to take them to the oven. Some use unwrapped wooden sticks that require sanding down from the particles of dough that get stuck. Many have changed to the paper wrapped sticks. The paper should be changed every time it's used to take matzos to the oven. There should be a physical wall until the ceiling between the oven area and the perforating area, so the oven heat does not come into the room when you're working with the dough. There are sometimes fans near the divider wall or partition to keep the oven heat out of the perforating area. It takes a very long time for the oven floor to absorb the oven heat. It may take 2 to 3 days. Most bakeries will keep some fire on in the oven always, or will restoke the oven on Matzah Shabbos. Some ask for Tanarishan, the reason being that the oven was burnt out from the previous possibility of kfulos or chametz. The other side of the coin is the issue that sometimes the oven floor is not as hot as the interior of the oven. Others will not want a Sunday morning baking because of that concern. The one putting the matzah in the oven is called the sheber. Depending on the width of the oven, they usually work with 2 to 4 rows of matzahs in the oven. Some use 2 shebers, one to put in the matzah and one to take it out. It is much more efficient to use 2 shebers when possible. It's a fact that heat of the oven absorbs the water faster than the flour. So if there's more water in the dough, the heat is going to be absorbed and it will turn darker much faster, even though it's not completely baked out yet. It's therefore important to work with the driest possible dough, as it is written by the Chazon Ish, which is 42 to 45%. Most commercial bakery ovens are operating at 1100 degrees or above. Therefore, a dough that has a higher ratio of water will seem to be completely baked on the outside, Nikramu Paneh, when in fact the inside is still not completely baked. When the matzah cools partially and feels hard, it was dried, not baked. Some people have the expertise to be able to feel a matzah when it comes out of the oven, immediately when it comes out, if the softness is because of the heat of the matzah, because the thing that gets hot, even metal, will be pliable, or is it because there's a softness because it's not baked out well. Therefore, it's very advantageous to work with a very dry and crumbly dough. It's also important to have equal heat at both the oven floor and oven interior. When making a pita dough, the heat draws the top of the dough, which forms a pocket in the pita. So if you have that the top of the oven, the ceiling, is hotter than the floor, it'll draw up the matzah, the dough, and what happens is the ring on the bottom that has the contact to the floor of the oven, that part gets baked, and the rest of the thing you will see is actually white. The best thing is when it rises up a little bit and then settles back down, not that it remains during most of the baking process like a yarmulke completely raised up in the middle. Because contact temperature bakes a lot faster than reflective heat, which would be the center of it, would be a reflective heat, not contact heat. When matzah dough is put into the oven, it usually rises like a yarmulke and then settles down flat onto the oven, if it has the right ratio of water to flour. It will remain raised if the interior temperature is higher than the floor temperature. The top of the matzah will have the proper color, while the bottom of the matzah will be dark around the rim that was sitting on the hot stone floor of the oven. The bottom of the matzah will be whitish because it was getting baked from reflective heat and not from stone contact temperature. The interior of the oven toward the back wall is hotter than the front. Therefore, the further to the back the matzah are in the oven, the quicker they get baked. The shebers will usually start removing them back to front. Some shebers will move around the matzah in the oven and put them near the door to finish baking. Others object to have matzahs moved around in the oven and to put them by the door. Some very experienced individuals will feel the matzah as soon as it comes out of the oven to determine if the softness pliable is from the heat or not a fully baked matzah. They should wear thick gloves as the matzahs at that moment are very hot, over 300 degrees. After the matzahs are removed from the oven by the shebers, they are put onto a table or basket to cool and sent to the packing room. Some will line the basket with a fresh cloth or paper. Some check for kfulas or soft matzah at that point immediately after coming out of the oven. Counting 18 minutes. The 18-minute matzah baking time frame begins when the water is poured into the flour and ends when the last matzahs are put in or removed from the oven. Alert! Unbeknownst to consumers, some bakeries go until 22 minutes because that's the shita of Lubavitch. But if you makbid on 18 minutes, make sure that the matzahs do not go in any past 18 minutes and that they count from when the water goes into the flour, not from when they start rolling out the dough. Hand matzah are various thicknesses and different diameters. The range is from 6 to 7 matzahs per pound up to 10 or 11 matzahs per pound. The more matzahs to the pound, the thinner and smaller the matzahs are. To determine the real price of matzahs, it's not a per pound price to consider, but the per matzah price. Chabura matzahs. Chabura matzah should be made only in a bakery that has in place a relatively good system for the non-chabura matzahs. The chabura should improve, not hinder, the system by bringing sufficient individuals to do certain chores. Mayim shalanu, which a dry, crumbly dough. Timing issues. 18 minutes max for putting in water until removed from oven. How often the bowls and gloves get changed. How long is the kneading or finning? Cleaning of the finning tables and bars constantly. Working the dough pieces by the divider, cleaning the divider knife, cleaning all crumbs from Velgra's table. Rolling pin should not be put under the arm. Washed with cool water. Redler wheels burnt out. No matzo dough waits by Velgariz. No matzo dough waits by the Redler. No waiting for matzo to be put onto the stick that takes to the oven. Paper wrap sticks. There should be enough sticks available so they don't have to be reused with any sticks within the 18 minutes. All shitas harosh means no shias at all. If anybody wants a copy of this article, please send me an email to kashrasy@aol.com. Thank you.